hi, never mind.
Hello, Pxie.
Hey.
How's life?
Life is something. It's interesting. It be that way.
It'd be that way. I notice you fight with my community a lot, so it seems like you're, having fun with
Reddit
that.
hates me. I don't know about everybody else, but your Reddit fucking hates me.
Do you know why, Pxie? It's because you seem reasonable, and then you retweet these nuclear level takes. Pxie, why do you do this? But you know what?
Okay.
That's okay, because we're going to talk about the Tara Reade stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So there's another thing.
Yeah.
I think like I either read or interpret things like very differently than people, and it's happened to me more than once.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know like how to change that, because like when I literally read these things, like I the thought of it being something else doesn't even like cross through my head. So for example, the Tara Reade stuff, I'm trying to find the tweet that like people freak the over. I think character defense, found it. I think like character defenses, like when it comes to a person, like saying like this many people that worked with said person, or this many people who thought like said person was good, I think those are arguments when it comes to sexual assault. I think those are terrible arguments. I mean, like that's literally.
Wait, are you quoting a tweet, or is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. And then here's a tweet that like I retweeted that I was like, oh my god, like this is fucking stupid.
Mermuton is just mad because Pokey didn't
like,
get banned and yours Dan 100
65 women who knew Brett Kavanaugh in high school defended his character to 74 Biden staffers say that they never experienced or heard about.
Okay, so here's like a first thing, just facts of the matter. Do you understand, or do you not understand, or do you disagree? Comparing the Kavanaugh thing to the Tara Reade thing is insane. These are two totally different types of things. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree with that? If you don't agree with that, I can tell you why they're so different.
Okay. I agree that Ford is much more credible than Reade. Absolutely. I don't dispute that. The retweet, what I retweeted, is trying to like point out, or at least like in my mind, when I
wait, show me what you retweeted. Can you show me, and I can?
Okay, I have to find it again.
Mm-hmm.
Was like the fucking like absurdity of being like, oh, you know, like 74 Biden staffers said that they never like experienced harassment or never heard about it, and then like, oh, the 54 people of like Kavanaugh's like high school or whatever that are women, never like as like a tribute or like test to his character or whatever. And to me, like, there's a lot of credible or like reasonable doubts you can have about the Reade case. I don't disagree with that. Like, I understand why people are doubtful of her, and I don't blame that. I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, you're like a fucking sexist, whatever, for not believing her, because there are reasonable doubts to have in there. But to make the fucking argument of like, oh, this many people like think that you're like a good dude.
Okay, yeah. So wait. So the reason why these arguments are legitimate is because typically when we're hunting down these types of harassment, these sexual assault cases, usually there's a fuck ton of groundwork that has to be done in order to prove the allegations of these women, unfortunately, because the most important thing is generally establishing a pattern of behavior. Now, it seems to be the case that when these like celebrities are accused of sexual assault, seems to be the case that it's not usually a one-off thing. There tends to be a pattern of behavior that, like when you look at the Bill Cosby case, when you look at the Weinstein case, that it seems to be that when one person steps out, when you look at Donald Trump, there's a lot of other women that step out and start to make similar accusations. Now, when it comes to looking at an accusation against Biden, we've gotten a lot of, he's pretty creepy, he, like violates boundaries in kind of a weird way, but nobody's ever accused him of like sexual assault / rape. And for him to not have that accusation at all, despite all the other kind of creepy stuff, and for him to have a room full of staffers that have worked with him prior, people that ran the office, people that worked in the office, and for none of them to have ever said, I've never heard about him doing that ever, it's a little strange that he's only sexually assaulted one person his entire life, and that's the only time he did it, and nobody else is going to come forth with anything else. I think that's a thing to look at.
Okay, hey, this is where I say, like, yeah, that is a reasonable doubt. And I think that's the strongest argument you can make for Biden. That, like, hey, you know what? Like, people who do commit, like, sexual assault, people who do, like, commit rape, this doesn't tend to be, like, a one-and-done thing. Now, it can be, but chances are, the pattern usually shows that it isn't. So I fucking agree with that.
Wait, then what's the problem?
Wait, I'm not done. The problem, how do you call it? I do think that there's like other evidence that you have to take into consideration that for me makes me believe like Reade's side more, or gives me more like ability to believe Reade, and we can go into that for a second.
Well, no, let's focus on this one thing first, and then we can go into the other stuff.
Okay. But for me, like the whole idea of like, oh yeah, these people that worked with him or whatever, like never experienced any misconduct or anything like that. Like before the whole Weinstein, like New York Times expose came out, he was like a fucking like, I don't want to say like well celebrated, but like pretty celebrated like person in the community. Like
hold on, wait. Okay, wait. This is no. That's just not true. You can keep going, but what you just said is absolutely not true.
You do want to find like speeches of people?
I'll bet you $20,000 right now because I know it's not true. Because Pxie, people have made jokes constantly about Weinstein being creepy in private. We can go and look at the YouTube videos right now. Like I think even on Family Guy there were jokes written about Weinstein being creepy in private. Everybody's talked about it.
I remember during like the fucking like how do you call it, like Me Too movement or whatever, like one of the biggest criticisms is that you had like people like fucking like I don't want to say these names because I'm not 100% sure because now I'm doubting my memory, but from what I remember, like Oprah or like Ellen or whatever, who have like said good things about Weinstein before, and it's like, whoa, wait a second, like if you thought like, you know, if this was like basically like an open secret basically, then how come like all these celebrities in the past like talk so highly about him when it came to like these rewards?
Because people people in power typically look out for other people in power. But that's why when we look at like who's talking about Biden, we're not asking all the other senators. We're asking people that like worked for him, like his staffers. There's a difference between other celebrities coming out and defending another celebrity versus asking the people that worked with him or had negative experiences with them or could have had negative experiences with him. It's not the same thing.
But okay, I guess like I kind of like don't necessarily agree with that per se.
Okay, hold on. No. It's important that like none of these things on their own exonerate somebody. This is all, it's a pattern, it's a collection of stuff. All of this is circumstantial, right? You can never prove a sexual assault. Nobody can, ever. Like, that's happened 30 years ago. All of this is going to be circumstantial. So, of course, like, this is just one thing. If this was the only thing that was about Biden, then of course it wouldn't work. But this is just one more little token of, like, credibility that goes towards defending Biden against this rape accusation. And again...
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sure, but to point to, like, the Kavanaugh stuff, first of all, people defended his character in high school versus people that had worked for decades with Biden, you know, between like different offices and whatnot.
Yeah, I still think it's a shit argument. I mean, like,
it's not a good.
It doesn't have to be like Weinstein either. I mean, this is something that like, sexual abusers like do like over and over again, and it's why people who are sexually abused have stayed in power so long, because they're generally like well liked and they're like within like their little community, or because like most people don't see that fucking side to them. Like people think like, oh no, like he's generally a good guy. Like,
that doesn't seem to be the case though. When we started outing people, when people, that was the whole point of the Me Too movement. Was when people started to get outed, a whole bunch of people started to step forward and were like, well, hold on, this guy's fucked with me too, or hold on, you know, this guy's also messing with me.
But I'm saying like the argument itself, like making the argument of like, oh, you see, like these 74 people like thought he was okay, or like that they worked with him. You see, like that to me, that is just generally speaking of that argument.
That's not the only argument. That's just one in a collection of men.
We're talking about the tweet right now. That's why I said like there's other stuff that we can talk about.
But the tweet is garbage because it makes it sound like that's the only difference, or that it's a massive similarity between Christine Ford or whatever. Is it Christine Ford or Rebecca Ford? Christine Ford and Tara Reade. But it's not. To treat these two cases the same is absolutely insane.
Not the case. Yeah, I agree with you. But the whole idea of that tweet is to show like how fucking crazy like an argument of like this many people like who think that this is a good person or whatever is so fucking stupid.
It's not stupid though.
How? We just agreed that like...
No, we didn't agree on anything. Pxie disagreed with every single thing you said. If he has an office full of people that have no rumors, have never experienced any sexual assault, or there's not any talk of that, that's a point in his positive. Doesn't exonerate him, doesn't prove that it's true, but that's definitely a step in the right direction. You must agree with that. Of course it is. Now, he could still be like secretly molesting people or, you know, privately raping people. That's possible. But to have an office full of people that have worked with him and said, oh, it's generally a positive environment for women. He can be kind of creepy sometimes, but no fucking rape. That's generally a point in his favor.
Okay, this might just be something that we're gonna have to like agree to disagree with.
Okay, here's the question: if there was somebody in his office that said that he was a rapist, would that be bad?
Yeah.
If there was nobody in his office that said he was a rapist, would that be better?
That's better than bad. Sure.
Okay, then there. So at the very least, it's neutral, okay, and not bad, and it could be bad, which makes it kind of good.
Okay. No, the argument. Okay, I think.
If you take your, here's a question. Let's say you think something is wrong with your car, okay? Let's say you take it to the shop, and the shop says, hey, we looked for problems, we couldn't find any, right? Now, is that good or bad? Well, technically it's neutral. It's the same as it was before. But I didn't get bad news, which is good, which means maybe there's nothing wrong with it, right? It's just one point in the right direction. It's not like an argument.
Okay. I guess the reason why I have a problem with this argument per se, and maybe I'm just seeing it like too much like in a general lens, or maybe I'm just like too fucking triggered because I've seen it used so many times. It's because it's usually arguments that are like these that are used to like point that somebody like isn't like a rapist. Even if even if there's like overwhelming evidence in other ways that they are, which is not the case in Biden, let me make clear, but it's maybe like why I'm viewing it like in such like a distasteful,
but that's the
like
you can't divorce
light.
but you can't divorce this argument from the other ones. Of course there are times when people use shitty arguments to try to exonerate somebody who's clearly a rapist, but this isn't one of those times. Because this case happened so long ago, and because all the details around it are so fuzzy, these are exactly the snippets of information that you need to try to build a case in the affirmative or the negative. Like, that's all you can do is rely on stuff. This is literally all we have. Like,
okay, I see your perspective now. I'm still kind of salty about it. I don't know if I'm being irrational, but I think it's just because like I know that people are going to like fucking see this argument and then like see like, oh, you see, like this is like working for them, like this is something that a lot of people are taking true.
But
then,
there's
like,
way more harm. There's way more harm in people seeing this tweet and thinking that Christine Ford's accusations were treated the same way as Tara Reade's. That is so much more harmful and so much more dishonest. Christine Ford approached her entire case with Kavanaugh in a fundamentally different way than Tara Reade, and to compare the two is an insult to Christine Ford. It's unbelievable.
It's comparing the fucking well, for me at least, like when I retweeted it, it's like comparing the fucking title, the fucking idea of like, oh, this many people like say that this person was okay, which is like an argument.
That's great
like,
if for you that's the thing. But
use.
that's great if that's for you. But what these tweets do, and what a pattern of like ultra progressive / lefties have done, is try to say that the Kavanaugh accusations were basically of the same credence as the Biden accusations, which is absolutely not true.
For you.
Yeah.
I have an honest question for you. Like, how the fuck do I detect? Like, and sorry, I don't mean to be like too combative or whatever.
That's okay. It's
but, like,
fine. I love combative. Go.
Okay, how the fuck do I register that? Because like I read this shit and I think like in my mind like, okay, these comparisons are like really fucking harmful. Like, not comparisons, yeah, the whole idea of like, oh yeah, this many people thought this person was a good guy. Like, these arguments are going to be like used in the fucking future. Like,
okay, sure. So here's the problem. The problem is that when the hashtag #MeToo movement started, a lot of crazy progressives thought that literally all women were believed no matter what, and that's where these rape accusations came from. A lot of people don't understand how much fucking work goes into proving these sexual assault allegations. And it's honestly a disservice to the women that accuse these people, that put themselves at risk, and to the journalists that do so much homework trying to dig up and figure out if these accusations are true. A lot of people think that, oh, rape accusation, that's just a thing that fucking came out publicly. How many women were there with Cosby? Wasn't it like over 20? It was like 15 accusers with Kevin Spacey. How many was it with Weinstein? Journalists do so much work to put together these allegations, to verify the stories, to corroborate the stories, to have multiple people that will back up multiple points, and to fit all the timelines together. It's not just a matter of somebody says something and you believe it, right? There's so much work. And parts of these little pieces of character building where, hey, well, did people that work within the past, whatever rumors, these are all parts of building that case. There was never video, well, hold on, I don't know. I don't think there was ever video footage of like Weinstein or Cosby raping someone, right? Or Spacey raping someone.
In Harvey Weinstein's case, there was a woman who was able to get a wire where he was trying to take her back to his room. Sure,
but you never got like the smoking gun of him like actually fucking raping someone on video, right? No. You're never going to get that in the case like that. And even that wire thing for the Weinstein case was probably like a once in a lifetime. Like, for the most part, like for the Cosby stuff, I don't think there were like any recordings or anything like that, right? You're never going to get like crazy shit like that. Like, these cases have to be built in an incredibly careful and an incredibly exhaustive way. And I think that people don't realize how much work goes into it. So they say like, oh, accusations against Kavanaugh, oh, accusations against Biden, they're the same thing. But they're absolutely not. Christine went through so much more work. She's incredibly more credible than Tara Reade. 2, she had a consistent story the entire time. 3, she approached like was it Feinstein before she even thought like, I don't know how I want to go public with this. What do you think is the most appropriate way? 4, she took a polygraph before she even decided to go public with it to like verify her story, everything. 5, there were like therapist notes from a meeting that she had like 10 years prior that seemed to back up everything she said like pretty clearly. Like, Christine's allegations, whether you think they're true or false, were much different than Reade, whose story has changed God knows how many fucking times, who seems to have done this at the most politically convenient point possible, and whose story couldn't be verified by any other major media outlet besides the inner shit that decided to publish it because they hate fucking Biden. Like, these stories are completely fucking different, and to keep trying to say, well, they're pretty similar is so dishonest.
I never disagreed with that point. I said like from the beginning, like, hey, okay, it annoys me because sometimes like for example, like in the last conversation we had about gaming, I was like, oh yeah, my point is not about like whatever about that we should ban on voice chat. Like I'm asking you questions so I can understand more like what this should happen or not. And then everybody was like, oh my god, you want to ban on voice chat. So I just want to make it very clear. My argument here is not, oh my god, Reade like is the same thing as like fucking Kavanaugh. Like they're the same exact thing. Like that is not my fucking
you
argument.
Understand then that this tweet is trying to say that. Do you not understand that? Like when you're literally getting a tweet that's comparing. Okay, sure. Okay, Biden and Kavanaugh, like it's literally comparing the two, saying they're the same. That's been a common progressive or extreme left talking
point. Okay, it's like comparing like the whole idea of like 74 like Biden staffer said this, like 65 people like said Brett Kavanaugh was like a fine character in high school, which I think the argument in general like shouldn't be made. Like there's so many fucking better arguments, I think.
Like what? How many other ways do you prove somebody didn't sexually assault somebody? Well,
no, here's the thing. Like, if you're gonna talk about, like, what is it? About the whole, like, 74 Biden staffers say that they never experienced or heard misconduct, I think there was a much more, like, more responsible way that you could have worded that, right? So you could have worded something like, okay, this is just from the fucking top of my head. I could, like, probably think of something better later. But, hearing misconduct in the office, like Biden, blah, blah, blah. Like the whole idea of like, oh no, this many people said that he's a good guy, so it means like he's a good guy, or the implication of that is like so fucking dangerous.
Wait, but that was never the implication. They never say he's a good guy. They just say they never experienced or heard about misconduct. That's it. They don't even say he's a good person.
What do you think that implies when you hear like a person say like, oh, well, this many people like thought like never heard something happened, so that means like nothing happened.
Okay, wait. Like, give me one example of how they could have reworded this. It's literally just the 74 Biden staffers say they never heard or experienced misconduct.
What is it? I remember reading the article and it was talking about like how there were like lists previously about senators they should stay away from. Yep. So I think you could have made first of all, like there's a couple of things. I think you could have made like a whole fucking expose on that, and like you could have pointed out like, hey, you know what? Like there were like these lists that were made of like.
Wait, why would you write up? That's a whole different story. That's not what we're...
Well, no, I think that would have, like, really helped fucking Biden's case, because it shows, like, okay, like, all these women, like, repeatedly, like, talked about, like, staying away from this person, staying away from that person. Biden wasn't, like, in any of these fucking lists. I think that
why would you want to... Yeah, but you don't want to drop that bombshell without vetting that list for... Again, you seem to think that, like, people just hear a sexual assault and they just publish it. Maybe at The Intercept, that's how it works, but that's not how it works for mainstream media publications. They have to verify this stuff. They're not just going to say, like, oh, well, who was on the list? Oh, well, Biden's on it. By the way, here are 27 other senators that you should watch out for that might be creepy rapists.
Well, yeah, that's why I was saying, like, they should have done, like, a full fucking expose. It would have taken more time, absolutely, but I think, like, it would have been, like, fucking worth it.
Yeah, maybe they are. Maybe there are people that are working through that, sure. But okay, sure. But regardless, that's not what this story was about. The story was just that 74 Biden Senate staffers have never experienced or heard about this misconduct. Like, that's it.
But you don't think there's like a fucking clear like implication when it comes to that?
Yeah, the implication is that Biden didn't rape any of his staffers. That's the implication.
Okay, but the implication is like, okay, if you have like a lot of people who think that this person's like okay or like never heard about it, that means like it never happened.
That's not true. This is all part of publishing articles and building a story on whether or not Biden did it.
You don't think there's a fucking implication with that title? Like, I could make the same argument you're making with the Kavanaugh thing. Oh, well, 65 women.
65 people that knew him in high school?
Yeah, they never heard anything bad about him. Like, I'm just saying. Like, I don't understand. Like, I there's honestly like a logical disconnect I'm having here.
Okay, what are your other... I don't think we're ever going to come to an agreement on this. I don't think there's any other way that this story could have been published, and I think that this is an important piece of evidence in building the credibility or not credibility of Biden. I don't see how anybody could disagree with that. But, I mean, I understand you disagree and you think that these types of stories should never be published because whatever his Senate staff said doesn't matter.
I think, like, what annoys me is, like, the fucking whole idea of, like, number count of this amount of people who think this person is like good or think this person isn't bad. Like, that's what fucking annoys me.
Because you think that there's going to be like a smoking gun to exonerate somebody.
No, I don't think there's going to be a fucking smoking gun. I just do think that like arguments like this are insanely harmful for like a lot of women. That's literally something that like sexual abusers like take advantage of all the fucking time. That's why people like who are like basically like repeated like serial pedophiles and shit, or just like even let's say
hard like, disagree. How are you going to prove? Then what other kinds of evidence are you looking for?
I mean, like, again, I think it's fair to say, like, okay, like, Biden doesn't have, like a reputation of, like, doing this over and over again. But I don't...
Wait, but how do you know that unless you interview his Senate staffers?
I think it's trying to interview Senate staffers. I'm not saying that's like wrong. I'm saying like specifically like the wording of it is what's annoying me.
Okay,
I know it
okay.
sounds like it's a magical thing, but it's important to me. And the reason why it's important to me is because this same fucking argument is going to be used in the future when somebody else gets raped.
Sure, and that's fine. These are all part of the things that you build towards people in the future. That's fine. Yeah, if you've got a ton of associates and a lot of them seem to think that you're an okay person, you've got a higher chance of being an okay person than if you've got a ton of associates and a few of them are like, the guy kind of fucking rapes people. That's an important part of building these stories.
This dynamic is something that abusers like constantly fucking take advantage of. The fact that like, oh, like a lot of people
tell me what other
like,
types of evidence Biden could use to exonerate himself then. If we can't rely on the words of anybody that he didn't rape, then how do you figure it out?
That's for me like a very fucking hard question.
Well, you should have an answer to it because you're pushing conspiracy theories that Biden is a crazy rapist. So you should have an answer for like, well, what would exonerate him?
I'm saying there's like, I don't think there's gonna be a clear exoneration. That's a problem. Just like there's not a clear smoking gun. I don't think there's gonna be like a fucking.
So then
clear,
Biden
like,
is always going to be a rapist on your Twitter feed. You're always going to retweet Biden's rapist because one crazy woman came out and said that he was a rapist. That's forever.
It's not just that like, oh, she came out of nowhere, right?
She did come out of nowhere.
Oh, okay. Since like 1996. Like,
no. Since I think it was
Let me finish my fucking sentence. Let me finish my sentence, please. Can I? Okay.
Yep, go.
Since 1996, like her divorce papers, like reference, like, hey, like did she seem to experience some sort of trauma, while she was like at her working with like Biden? Was this specifically Biden raped her? No, not necessarily. Like they didn't specifically mention any names. It was the fact that like her mother called like fucking Larry King and also referenced an occasion that happened within like Biden's office. It's the fact that she went to like fucking Times Up and then went to like Kamala Harris's and like Senator Warren's campaign to try to like get her story out like months before the time that we've reached right now. It's a fact
when Biden started to win the nomination. When he was nominated for VP, she didn't give a fuck about that. And also, her story has dramatically changed when she talked to major media outlets in the past. There was the Vox writer that said that when Tara Reade originally came to her, I think a year ago, she just said that she was harassed. She didn't mention anything sexual whatsoever. And she even explicitly said, by the way, this wasn't about sexual harassment or whatever. And she completely changed that story. And her friend changed her story as well to match what Tara Reade said later. And Tara Reade also said, if you release the records, you will find that I filed a sexual harassment complaint. And when Biden said, okay, well, let's release the records, she's like, okay, well, hold on. I didn't mention sexual harassment exactly. Okay, that's not in there. Dude, she has changed her story so fucking much. Are you serious?
Okay, so this is the thing about like changing stories, and that's something that generally, like for any other like fucking crime that doesn't involve trauma, I would be like,
oh my god. Okay,
you know how trauma works?
No. No, you don't get to walk away with the argument by going, oh well, this is how trauma works. She can literally say whatever the fuck she wants, and we treat her like she's literally got fucking Down syndrome, and she can say any fucking thing, and Biden is always going to be guilty.
It's so fucking hard. This is why it's like such a fucking hard argument to have, and that's why I'm saying there's room for reasonable doubt, and I don't fucking blame somebody if they're like, oh yeah, that's not enough for me. But literally, the way that fucking trauma works is not like a one-way scale.
Fine,
like,
I can literally say right now then that you raped me, and you think everybody right now should believe that you're a rapist. Because you have no fucking way to disprove it, right?
There's never been a time that we met together, so...
Well, maybe not. I don't know. Didn't one of the people that accused Biden of raping somebody literally invent a convention or whatever that he was never even at the same time? People have started to try to do it to Biden, so... Do you understand how absurd your argument is? You're basically saying if somebody makes an accusation against Biden, literally nothing exonerates him.
I'm saying that there's no like clear path towards exoneration.
So then what do we do?
Hey, yeah, this is why it's so hard. I don't think there's
it's not
clear
hard.
answer for Biden. Yes, it is.
It's not.
I don't think there's a fucking... Can I finish my sentence?
No, I interrupt you so much. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Like, I don't think there's, like, a fucking clear answer. And I think, like, the only real answer that is going to put me, like, back into faith with, like, justice system and be like, okay, like, let the justice system fucking handle it is, like, literally just reform the way that we work rape cases from, like, top to bottom or from bottom to top, right? Like,
however you reform rape cases, it's not gonna be anywhere near as thorough as an investigation into somebody like Biden. So, like, what would you even change here? Like, what could Biden possibly do? At this point?
That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think there's, like, any, like, clear, like, fucking evidence that can point me as I know of right now. Like, I like, it fucking sucks. It's complicated.
Okay,
but it's
then
not like,
then you should just sticky a tweet on your Twitter that says literally no matter what happens, I'm always going to believe Reade, so you should ignore everything I have to say about Biden and Reade. Because you're literally like a flat earth creationist right now saying like, literally no piece of evidence is ever going to change my mind to the contrary.
Well, not that I know of right now, right? Like,
yeah,
I
so
don't know
what?
if the future piece of evidence is gonna come up, and I'm gonna be like, okay, like that changes everything. Like if I find out something that like, oh yeah, like Tara Reade like was trying to like do this for fucking money or whatever, like she was like purposely like, you know,
That's,
to, like,
come on,
fuck
that's
over.
never
Yeah,
gonna
that's
come out.
impossible. Yeah, like as far as I know, like that's probably not gonna happen. But I really don't like how you're phrasing this as this thing like, oh no, like you're being like so irrational right now. Like I don't understand like why she would go through the trouble of like having this like on her fucking divorce papers in 1996, like having her mom like call.
Stop. To be clear, on her divorce papers, all she said was she had problems in the office. And when her mom called in, her mom said she had problems in the office. None of this referenced any type of sexual behavior or misconduct whatsoever, and none of it even named Biden whatsoever. So
okay. So she just like what is it? Like her claim that like the problems in the office like were sexual assault like just is not true.
That's what it seems to be. Yes. If you read the totality of what's been published so far, that seems to be the overwhelming answer. Is that yeah, it seems like there was no sexual misconduct that occurred.
And you think like her brother and her neighbor who like talked about it or like who?
So her brother initially, she had said she'd only told a couple other people. Her brother was not mentioned about the story. So her brother mysteriously showed up later after it started to get picked up by mainstream media and matched Tara Reade's story exactly. And her neighbor that she had told initially had a different story a year ago when she was first trying to run to the mainstream press with this story. And now her friend has changed her story to match Tara Reade's story as well. So both of these people heard Tara Reade more than help her. Yeah, that's what it seems to be the case. They changed their story completely. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Can I say something? You're not gonna like this, but it's like fucking true. Like I'm gonna put like myself in like that position so to try to convey myself better. The reason why I have a hard time being like, oh, changing stories is like an obvious like show of these people like being like fucking liars is because like I've been in like fucking similar positions in the past where I've lied to people like fucking straight faced about whether my friend has experienced sexual assault or the level they've experienced sexual assault because I don't know how fucking like comfortable or okay they are with me sharing like what part of the story.
If your friends are talking to mainstream media outlets, you've probably already had that conversation. That's part of what mainstream media outlets do.
Saying like, hey, you know what? I'm okay with like with saying like this part right now, but like I'm not okay with like maybe like showing the full fucking
Fine,
story.
then your credibility deserves to be destroyed and nobody should believe anything you say ever. If you're going to trickle truth like that. That's literally, you want to talk about emotional abuse? You want to talk about like abuse in a relationship? Trickle truth is the number one way that people do it. Like, okay, well, I did this. Oh, okay, you comment that? Okay, I did that too. Okay, I guess I did that too. Trickle truth is one of the easiest ways to destroy your credibility in a fucking heartbeat. Of course. And it's reasonable to expect that as well.
Okay. I'm getting like too emotionally involved in this conversation. But can I pick it up with you later?
Sure.
Like privately. Okay.
Cool. It's
No, I know. This is like totally on me.
No, I'm just saying that like if you're really emotionally involved, I understand that, but like you're destructive to the process of democracy because there's one woman that's accusing Biden of something and it's causing people to consider not voting for him over a guy that has over 20 rape accusations against him that's admitted to raping celebrities on tape. Like literally said, I will fuck women because I'm a celebrity. I don't care if they say no or not. Like literally, this is what Trump has said, and we're looking at Biden like, well, that one fucking insane woman that's changed her story like 15 fucking times, whose friends have changed her story 15 times. Well, I don't know if I could ever be convinced that she's not true. Like
somebody has like reasonable credibility. How do you call it? That's why I said like from the beginning, there's like reasonable doubt against her. I don't think like I to me like this truth or whatever, knowing like 100% she's like, innocent or not is, or if he's guilty or not is like a 0 to 100% thing. It's something that's like, okay, like I think there's proof, like there's reason for like reasonable doubt. So I'm not advocating for Biden to be in fucking jail. And I think we have this high standard for a reason, and it's because like in America, and I think like that's a really good value to have, we value freedom a lot, and I think that's totally like, fucking
we're not talking about who goes to jail or not, though. We're talking about who's getting crucified in the ring of public opinion so that we could try to force Biden out or get people to not vote for him. So you've got people literally saying there's like, well, I don't know if I'd vote for Biden because I don't know if I could vote for a sex offender, so I'm going to vote third party. And if Trump wins, the guy that said he'll rape women because he's a celebrity who has over 20 accusations, if he wins, well, oh well, you know, at least I didn't vote for Biden, who has that one lady that The Intercept broke the story on that is accusing him of raping her, you know, outside of every other piece of evidence.
There's arguments against this as well. Like, you know, like if those people are going to argue like, oh, well, you know, I just believe Tara Reade and I don't feel comfortable like voting like a rapist. And it's like, well, you're effectively voting a rapist. And if you like vote third party because
if Trump wins, sure.
Yeah, so like there's other arguments that you can make that aren't like, oh, you know, fuck Tara Reade. She's not like, I don't like believe her.
Sure. I think it's really important to have like an answer in mind. If somebody's like, well, what would it take to convince you that this is wrong? If you can't fathom that, then it seems like you're like super ideologically dug in.
It's the case in the fucking 90s. Like, there's no fucking smoking gun. There's nothing, like, clear right now. Like, this is a time that just rape was treated incredibly different. Like, I want there to be, like, a fucking smoking gun that shows, like, oh, complete innocence or, like, complete guilt.
Yeah, but how that's never gonna happen.
That doesn't fucking exist. Yes. So I have to go with, like, okay, like, look at her actions in the past. Like, look at what it points to. Like, does this make sense? And, like, so far, yeah, like, I think that even though there's room for reasonable doubt, if I had to, like, put my foot on one way or the other, it would slightly, like, lean towards her. Like that, like, I don't know
why? With what? How? For what?
Because I don't understand why, like, first of all, even though the paper trail doesn't explicitly say, like, oh yeah, like, Biden, like, fucking raped her, it does explain that, like, a situation happened in Biden's office. I don't understand why she would go to Time's Up. I don't understand, like, why she would go to, like, Kamala Harris's and, like, Warren's, like,
why did she wait until Biden was winning the nomination? Why didn't she say this when he was nominated for vice president under Obama? Why wouldn't she have come out then?
Because, like, it fucking scared her more because she thinks the presidency has, like, more power, which it, like, really does.
You think the vice president has more power than a potential president?
Well, if he, I think a president has more power than a vice president.
Okay, so she was scared when he could be vice president, but she wasn't scared when he could be president? How does that make sense?
No, like, yeah, like, she was like, okay, like, oh yeah, I am kind of scared of, like, vice president, but I'm not, like, ready to come out with my fucking story yet. Like, I still have to, like, fucking, like, process this thing. And then when it came down to, like, president, it was like, okay, oh shit, like, no, like, I like, this is too much. I don't know, I'm not, like, in Tara Reade's fucking mind.
Sure, but you're giving this excuse for her that maybe she was scared when he could have been vice president, but she's not scared of him being president. That doesn't make sense at all.
No, that she wasn't scared when he was vice president, and she was scared when he's about to become president.
Oh wait, so she thinks that, like, as president he's gonna ruin her life when she has the secret rape accusation?
Well, no, it's the whole idea that, like, when people are in positions of power or, like, greater power, then they have the ability to, like, abuse others even more.
So she thought as vice president. Wait, why didn't, if this was true, this is so on so many different levels. So firstly, she thought that he couldn't rape people as vice president, but he can as president.
No, maybe she did, but maybe she wasn't fucking ready to come out with her story. I don't know. People are fucking weird.
So 15 years wasn't enough time, but 23 years was enough time?
Yes, absolutely. That's fucking completely possible. Like, I don't know, like, what else to say. Like, people, and I know you're like, oh, that trauma shit is bullshit, but it's real. Like, people come at, like, through different
trauma isn't an excuse to act like an insane, random, crazy shit. 15. You can't just say trauma to excuse every piece of behavior. Like, Tara Reade murders both of her children. Well, she was still traumatized. Like, what do you do? Or Tara Reade, comes out and says 50 million crazy things. Well, she was traumatized. They could all be true.
Two of your children is not the same thing as, like, coming out, like, to the
I never said it was the same thing. I'm saying that
you're acting like it's the same thing if you're gonna.
No, I'm not acting like it's the same thing. I'm saying that we can't excuse a person's actions, every action they do, and just say, well, trauma explains everything. Because if trauma explains everything, then trauma explains nothing. No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't.
You don't think? Okay, I don't even know how to begin with this. Do you know how trauma works?
There are a lot of different ways that trauma works.
Okay, do you know how trauma generally works?
No, I would never generalize it. There are a lot of different ways that trauma can take form.
Okay, that's true. You know, one of those ways, or a very common way, is the fact that it's not like a fucking singular line. That people go back and forth from denial to not denial.
Of course they can,
yeah. People go back and forth from accepting their situation to not accepting it.
Sure.
To people, like, spending, like, years finally, like, fucking making a breakthrough. Like, it's not just, like, this thing that's, like, straight up, like, oh, you know what? Like, now I realize my traumatic experience.
It's so interesting that it took her 20, however many years in 2018, and then in 2019, she finally had the breakthrough as soon as Biden clinched the nomination. That's what it took for her to do it. Not in 2008 when he ran, not in 2008 when he was a vice president, and not when he started running this cycle, but after he got ahead of Bernie, then finally that was the breakthrough that she needed after 30 or whatever years. Like, okay, now I'm ready to go forward with my story that, like, all my friends and brother and everybody have changed on now that I'm ready to come forward with a new version. She
came. Wait, I'm kind of confused. Like, maybe I got the timeline events wrong. I don't think I did, but she contacted, like, Time's Up and Kamala and Harris, like, before we got into a situation where Biden was projected.
Yep, but when she did it then, she didn't have a sexual assault allegation. She just said that she was harassed. There was no sexual assault allegation in the beginning of the election cycle. It wasn't until Biden passed Bernie that it turned into a full-blown sexual, like, rape allegation. And in 2017, Tara Reade was praising Biden. So, I mean, like, yeah, her story has changed quite a lot in just the past year.
Okay. I know you're going to be like, oh, you know, Biden's trauma excuse is bullshit. But I mean, like, fuck, like, it's true know, like when you experience like fucking trauma, like the whole idea, like, oh, you know, like praising your abuser, like that doesn't make any fucking rational sense.
The timeline on this is fucking magical. Some Disney magic. Literally in April of 2019, Reade specifically said that Biden did not do a sexual assault on her, or that his actions weren't sexual in nature. In April of 2019.
I've had, okay, anecdotal, whatever. I have had so many fucking friends who have told me, like, word for word, that they were basically raped, but they didn't call it rape. They called it, like, oh, you know, I was just, like, generally, like, assaulted or whatever. Or they sometimes denied that any fucking assault happened. And, like, in 6 months or, like, 7 months after, like, a whole ton of work, they come back to me and they were like, holy shit, like, I think I was, like, raped back then. Which is, like, yeah. You're like, fuck yeah, like you were.
So
like,
after 28 years, it wasn't it, but 28 years and 3 months of an election cycle, then it was all healed. Then the trauma was... Do you understand how uncredible that sounds?
Nobody's saying the trauma's even fully fucking healed yet. Nobody's making that claim.
Well, now she seems very comfortable parading her story out and in front of as many media outlets as would allow it. She'll talk on interviews on live TV about it. She'll talk to any journalist that'll talk to her about it. She seems incredibly comfortable. She had a massive healing process. Yeah, she had a massive healing process.
She's not like fucking fully healed, but maybe she felt comfortable enough with like coming out with it. Like I don't know, like these arguments are the same ones I are used like when people like come out like 20 or 30 years.
No,
like,
they're not. Not like that. When you
like,
say that, you're spitting in the face of every sexual assault accuser. People do not change their stories like this. People don't flip on a dime after 2 months when they've had the same story for 20 years when it's like politically expedient to do so. That is not how these sexual assault allegations work.
Most people don't have like sexual assault experiences with a fucking politician, right? But like fuck, the vast majority do. Like, hey, it could either like who knows like how fucking long, it could take 20, 30 years, it can be like 25 years keeping the same story, but maybe they knew like 2 years ahead of time like what really happened, but it took them like 3 years to build up the fucking courage to come out with it. Like shit, man, it's not like
it's insane to me that you would say that you lean towards Tara Reade's side when her stories become less and less consistent every passing day. Not a single person corroborates a single thing that she said. No mainstream media outlets were able to corroborate a single accusation that she's made. There's no records, no reports, no filing of any type of assault anywhere. But you're like, oh, well, I lean towards her because trauma, LOL.
Well, yeah, because I saw, like, the different, like, first of all, like, I see the thing about, like, Larry King, and even though, like, and about the fucking divorce papers, and even though it didn't explicitly say sexual assault, it did mention, like, a fucking incident, because I see, like, her trying to go to Time's Up, Warren, and Kamala, because I see those patterns, and I'm like, well, she, like, obviously, like, had a fucking story to tell, like, for a fucking long time. And
so she was comfortable trying to tell that story then, but she didn't want to mention anything. She explicitly said back then that there was nothing sexual.
Wait, well, when are you specifically referring to?
Anytime before fucking April. She explicitly, and her friend explicitly said multiple times there was nothing sexual. It's not of sexual nature. In April of 2019...
I'm pretty sure that when she went to Time's Up, she was talking about, like, hey, like, I was, like, assaulted.
But she said it was explicitly not...
Maybe I'm confused, but I'm pretty sure...
So as of April 29th, as of April... in 2019, she said she did not consider Biden's actions to be sexualization, instead comparing her experience to that of being a beautiful lamp. Because the story that she told was, I think she was serving drinks, and Biden made some comment about like, oh, you should come serve drinks at my club or some bullshit because you have nice legs, which is a creepy, stupid thing that Biden said, which is really consistent with the other creepy behavior that he's had. Way more believable than, oh, he raped me in a fucking hallway after I went to the gym.
Wait, you're gonna have to give me a second because I'm trying to find out when she went to like Time's Up, because I'm pretty sure that when she went to Time's Up, the allegation was like already to the extent of like, oh no, it was like assault. And I'm pretty sure that was before April, or maybe I'm wrong. So give me one little second, or if you want to find it.
I mean, like, there was a writer at Vox that had written about their... I don't know if the New York Times or the Washington Post have written about their difficulties corroborating this, but the Vox reporter that wrote about this had spoken to Reade and her friend, and I think and her brother, multiple times, and it talked about how her story dramatically changed over a year.
But like what I know I listen, I understand like why you look at inconsistency and why you're like, hey, like that to me shows like something's fucking up and something's sketchy. I don't understand like why, and maybe like I'm being like way too like fucking naive here, being like, hey, you know what, like I think that I don't understand why she would go like through all this fucking trouble of going through like all these different fucking channels for just something that she fucking made up.
Sure. My understanding is that it wasn't until March of this year is when she first started to admit that that it was sexual assault. I think it was March of this year.
My understanding was that when she went to like fucking Time's Up, which was like way before March, she was already coming out with the story. But maybe I'm wrong.
What is Time's Up? Is that like a...
That was a legal nonprofit that works on sexual assault cases that said that they couldn't take her story because it could threaten their nonprofit status, which is, you know, like understandable why, but still, that was when she... Yeah.
Okay, I'd be curious of saying this because my understanding is that it wasn't until like very recently, like she had a very consistent story for like 20 years. And then it changed in March. And that last story that she had was like consistent with what her mom calling into Larry King, with the whatever document that said that she filed a harassment complaint or whatever, or like a whatever. No, not the document. The court filing or whatever. That story that she was consistent with for like 20 years, that her friend and brother corroborated, or that her friend corroborated because her brother supposedly didn't know anything at that point. That was like razor consistent for 20 years. And then magically this year, it all changed. It became a rape case.
There's gonna be something I said. But I fucking forgot, so never mind.
Not to mention the fact that breaking a story about Biden raping somebody, I can't imagine how many other outlets were frothing at the mouth to break this story. Like, there would be so much incentive in this time period to break that story. And every other major media outlet was working on it. Everybody else says it, right? In the Vox article, they talk about how like they know multiple WAPO reporters, multiple New York Times reporters that were trying to break this story, but nobody could corroborate it. The stories just kept changing. Nothing materialized. Everything was like very iffy. And Tara Reade's story herself constantly changed. And her credibility is not existent.
Well, yeah, I think like a lot of these accusations, I think the strong point of most of these accusations is that there's more than one victim usually. But then what makes it impossible, or what makes it extremely hard, is that let's say there are cases where it only happened once, then the person that it happened to is like completely fucked.
Does that seem to be the case with celebrities though? Doesn't it seem that when there are men that are when you look at like R. Kelly, when you look at Kevin Spacey, when you look at Bill Cosby, when you look at Harvey Weinstein, like
usually the pattern is repeated assaults, which is why I said before, like the strongest point I think anybody has here is that she's the only one who has come out with like a full-blown case. However, that doesn't mean that it's like not theoretically possible.
Of course, theoretically possible, but that's way different than like, I believe what could be theoretically possible over what like an overwhelming amount of evidence seems to point to. That makes you feel like you're very ideologically motivated rather than caring at all about the facts of the story.
There was something else I was going to say about that. And again, like this is, I guess, like my own bias or whatever, but the way that she described the incident, or at least she described this recent incident, sounds to me something that would be like completely in line with Biden's behavior, right?
No, what? Getting raped is totally out of line with his behavior.
No. Let me read the description that I remember. He penetrated 2 fingers in me. And like when I pushed away or when I said no, he said, "Come on, man, I thought you liked me." And then he looked at me and said, and this is straight from memory, so if I'm wrong in anything, like, "Come on, man, I thought you liked me. You mean nothing to me. Like, you are nothing to me." And then he left.
How does that sound like when nothing like that has ever been reported with Biden ever? How does that totally sound like it could be Biden behavior?
For me, the idea of like, "Oh, come on, man, I thought you liked me," of not being able to like read social cues. Like, I don't want to say this argument because it sounds like really like gross, kind of.
Probably is.
It's a whole idea that like, okay, like Biden is somebody who doesn't really like understand what is it called? Boundaries very well.
Do you really think it would be hard to make up the story you just said? That's not like that intricate of a story. That was literally like a 15-word story.
I can make up fucking stories about somebody raping me as well. It doesn't mean like, oh, that didn't happen or it did happen. Like, okay.
Like, I could make up a story. Like, if you give me like 20 minutes as a creative writing project, I could give you a story that sounds like pretty credible for like literally any person talking. Like, Bernie came up to me and said that like, "Oh, the pussy belongs to the 1%. You should share with us." And then he penetrated me with 2 fingers. Like, I can make up a story with like how anybody talks and like, "Oh yeah, this sounds like a credible rape allegation."
The point that I was trying to illustrate here is that it's a whole idea of like, that Biden maybe is not like this like fucking super fucking malicious person or whatever, but is somebody who consistently misreads social cues when it comes to
No, that is not true, okay? He consistently misreads social cues. He doesn't consistently rape people. There's a huge line that you think is just arbitrary. Like, maybe the kind of guy that could tell a woman her legs look nice and that's really cringe, maybe that's the kind of guy that could rape a woman in a hallway. I don't know. No, these two things are very different. And he has a pattern of behavior on one and absolutely no pattern of the other.
A rapist isn't like born from fucking overnight. A rapist isn't somebody who just like wakes up one day and is like, you know what, I fucking hate women.
Yeah, of course. But it's mighty strange that he only raped one woman and then never did ever again in all of his Senate career.
There are people who like consistently misread cues or like starts what is it called, like escalating, right?
Yeah, you have no evidence of any of this, that Biden has ever done any of this ever. You can describe to me like typical rapist or atypical rapist behavior, but that's not relevant to any of this. You have no evidence of any of it.
I would say that is like completely relevant, because I think it is completely possible to have like, there's a bunch of guys out there who don't think that they've raped anyone, but like they have date raped people. They have like consistently like.
I like how you're straight faced telling me that. Well, there are a lot of guys out here that do this one thing, but the words of 74 staffers, that's totally fucking ridiculous. I can't believe you'd ever think of that. But there are a lot of guys that accidentally rape women and don't know it. Like, what the fuck? Like, so because Biden is a male, like maybe he accidentally raped women, but we can't use like other people like eyewitness testimony for what kind of a character he was. Like,
I'm trying to explain to you like rapist behavior.
No, I don't need you to explain to me rapist behavior. I understand everything you're gonna say.
You're making it sounds like, okay, like, oh, Biden cannot be like, you know, this rapist is like this horrible like fucking like monster thing, and like
no,
Biden
because the problem is that because the problem is when people talk about trauma. So as somebody that's both experienced sexual assault trauma and as somebody that's experienced a lot of other things in his life, something that I've learned over the past 10, 20, 30 years of my life is that all sorts of trauma, whether it's PTSD, whether it's sex related, whether it's violence related, and all sorts of like rapey or abusive behavior can come in a basket of things. This is why in the DSM-5 everything is moved off of binaries to spectrums. There is no profile of a rapist. Every single rapist does this thing. Every single assault. So stop saying it. Stop. No. You're the one that's saying like, oh, well, don't you know this is exactly how trauma works? It's because she changed her story. Blah, blah. That's not exact. That's bullshit.
No.
Okay.
Whoa. Wait. First of all, I'm gonna cut you off like right there. When the reason why I was describing like the behavior of like a rapist, or why it can be like that sometimes, is because the description that you gave was like, oh, you see, like rapists are always people who do it like consecutively or like
no,
this, like long fucking list. That was the interpretation.
No, okay, what I'm saying is that all of it is building a case. It's entirely possible that 74 staffers say Biden was cool and he still raped people. It's entirely possible that he only raped one person. These are possibilities, but when it comes to building a case like this, you have to go piece by piece by piece by piece. Can anybody corroborate her story? No. Everybody else that worked with him, no sexual assault complaints. Okay. Has Tara Reade changed her story? Yeah, it seems like it. Do any other women want to come forward with sexual assault allegations? No, it doesn't seem like it, right? These are all little pieces that you have to use to build a case. And at the end of the day, when you look at the Tara Reade allegations, it looks like bullshit. Nobody's corroborated anything. The story's changed over time. Nobody else has come out with any type of similar complaints against Biden. When you're talking about rape accusations that happened 25 years ago, that's about all we can go on. There's nothing more you can do. At that point, you close it and you walk away. Maybe he did rape her. Maybe he won't. Truly, we'll never know. But like, all you can do is look at everything you can look at, and it seems like you have no piece of evidence in your mind that would convince you otherwise. So in your book, he's a rapist, despite the fact that there's no proof of it.
So to you, like, the idea of like, oh yeah, the fact that like this incident like was referenced like Biden's office before, the fact that like, you know, she went to go through like all these organizations before we got to the part we are right now in the primary, like those do not account as evidence for you. Because I look at that and I'm like, fuck, that seems like evidence.
Wait, what counts as evidence? Say that again?
Like how do you call it? I even though they didn't specify specifically like sexual assault, they did specify like an incident in the office, like the two cases of that with the Larry King and the divorce papers.
Maybe this is just my experience working, and I'm very biased. But no, dude, incidents happens all the fucking time in offices where employees get fired because they either suck at being employees or for other reasons, or where there's a fight between like a manager and an employee. Just because I see an incident file doesn't mean like, oh, rape. No, of course not. That's not evidence of anything.
One where like your husband is like fucking talking about like a clear fucking source of like trauma or something that you obviously haven't gotten over, or something like
doesn't necessarily mean it's sexual. If anything, the thing that her mom said to Larry King actually damages her case. No, it wasn't Larry King, right? Or is that what she called into? Was it Larry King? Yeah, because when her mom was talking to Larry King, her mom explicitly said it's the type of issue where she can't go to anybody else but the press. If it was a sexual assault or rape, she could have went to the police. So if anything, her mom calling in there explicitly points away from it being sexual assault. Now I know you're gonna say, well, maybe her mom is lying about that or wanted to protect her so she didn't say it. Like, you're gonna bend it any fucking way to make it work for your narrative.
Okay, I'm gonna have to re-see the Larry King video, because when I remember like hearing it or seeing it, like I remember her saying like, oh yeah, like she hasn't been able to get through with it like anywhere in the office, but she doesn't want to come out like publicly because out of like respect to the senator. Like, okay,
hold on. Well, we can find the clip right now, or we can find the words, because I'm pretty sure. Okay. Yes, hello. I'm wondering what a staffer would do besides go to the press in Washington, she asked. My daughter has just left there after working for a prominent senator and could not get through with her problems at all, and the only thing she could have done was go to the press, and she chose not to do it out of respect for him. If she was raped, she could have filed a police report.
You're not going to like the argument I'm going to use.
I know, because you're going to say, well, maybe she felt like the police wouldn't listen or blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah, of course. So, like, you should just pin on your Twitter, I am fucking, no matter what Biden says, he's always a rapist in my book. Fucking A. Hell yeah. Hashtag believe all women for sure.
No. Okay, because I'm kind of like political. People are going to think I'm like a fucking Weasley rat bastard. I think that it's important to talk about Tara Reade. I think it's important to expose like bad arguments or arguments that can be used like in the future that are going to like affect other rape survivors like terribly. I don't think like being like, oh yeah, like I think Biden's like a fucking evil rapist is really gonna accomplish anything. I think like it's important to be like, okay, like, you know, Tara Reade like obviously did go through something, like, hey, like this is important to talk about, like these arguments aren't like exactly the best to use when it comes to rape survivors. I think like if you start saying like, oh, Biden's like an evil fucking person like who like raped or whatever, it's just going to like make him look equivocal to like Trump, which I don't think is the case. If you want to go just like by pure fucking numbers, or if you just want to go like through the fact that like Trump seems like potentially, if not is like literally a pedophile, like there's, I think like that wouldn't really like fucking accomplish anything on my Twitter feed. Okay,
sure, but we're constantly saying Biden is a rapist, and we think he's a rapist. You don't think?
Well, I don't think he. I haven't like what.
You right now believe that Biden is a rapist.
Yeah, I think that he's most likely a rapist.
Okay, so then I don't know why you just tried to disagree with what I just said. So you believe that Biden is a rapist with zero evidence.
Oh, I should go like on my fucking Twitter and be like, I think Biden's like an evil fucking rapist.
Well, because you literally just told me that there's nothing that he could do that would disprove it otherwise. You don't believe there's anything that could come up.
Right now, maybe there is something that I don't know or I'm not thinking.
What kind of argument is that? What, like you're gonna die and go to the fucking gates of heaven and God's gonna be like, I'm gonna show you a fucking video of what really happened? Like what does that mean? Something could come to you in the future that would exonerate him?
Okay, I'm not gonna say like, okay, here, like I've used whatever this random argument meant, like maybe like aliens like fucking exist right now. I don't know, like I don't have like specific evidence for it, so I'm not gonna claim like, hey, like there's nothing ever that's gonna change my mind on the subject. Like it's.
We could both brainstorm 100 things right now that prove that aliens exist. If an alien landed in front of you, for instance, if a UFO went over the fucking White House and started blowing it up like Independence Day, would probably. So maybe there's something that's equivalent of like an alien like fucking coming down to existence and like coming up to me, and you know, maybe there's an equivalent of that I literally haven't like fucking thought of yet. Like I don't know. Okay, like God, like religion, or some spirituality thing. I guess.
I don't fucking know. The point is like, how can I like answer that when I can't even like fucking conceptualize it to begin with?
Well, because the thing is that before you have a strong, well, sure. Well, because if you can't possibly have a strong position or something, if you can't fathom how you could be talked out of it, it means that whatever you believe in is blind faith. You have no evidence processing whatsoever.
The evidence could like fucking exist, and the evidence that I'm using is like, hey, like. Well, it's things that you don't consider evidence. So I don't understand like how we're gonna get through this, because like for me, like, hey, like that incident in the fucking office that obviously like traumatized her. Like,
but you and I both agree that that's not evidence. You even agree that that's not evidence of sexual assault.
Well, not in like in a fucking court case. Like in a court case, that wouldn't probably mean anything to me personally. Like, hey, that does show something.
Yeah, something. It doesn't show sexual assault. Do you just instantly assume that every single problem between an employee and a manager must have been fucking rape? Is that your go-to?
No, but I find it like very hard that she would like keep talking about like, oh, like this incident in Biden with like the Time's Up, Kamala Harris, like fucking Elizabeth Warren, and like
none of these mention sexual harassment. None of these, everyone you're talking about, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, none of these mention sexual harassment.
I do not know if that's true, because I'm pretty sure Time's Up is about like.
I don't know what the Time's Up thing or what that is. I have no idea what that is. Here's a timeline of the accusations. It wasn't until my understanding was it was late March was when Reade first came out and said she got raped. But up before March 25th, she had never said that she was like sexually assaulted. What is Time's Up? Is that like a publication? What is Time's Up? What is that? I have no idea.
Time's Up is like a nonprofit like legal organization that like prosecutes.
Oh, so she went to them to ask them to take like a court case or whatever.
Like, yeah, to help.
But did she mention sexual assault to them?
I'm pretty sure she did, because why else would she go to Time's Up, an organization known for that?
What
I maybe like I'm fucking wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. Like I'm pretty sure like Time's Up came as a result of the Me Too movement.
Oh, people are saying she went to Time's Up in March of this year. So then, yeah, so it was in March when she finally like radically changed her story.
So to you, if she came out like a year before, like 2 years before, would that change your opinion of her a lot?
Pxie, none of this stuff is a clean, clear cut. If she did this one thing, it would change it. That's not how these work. These cases are built inductively.
I'm asking for you personally.
If she had a more consistent story, consistent stories tend to look better than non-consistent stories. However, especially in cases of trauma, there are definitely times where it's pretty acceptable or understandable that somebody would be relatively inconsistent, especially in time periods immediately following said trauma. Of course. But when you have a airtight, consistent story for 20 years that has been consistently corroborated, and then all of a sudden it fucking changes as soon as this guy pulls ahead in the primary, and there's so many weird things around it, then yeah, no, you lose a lot of credibility. And then you have to try to do the groundwork and say, okay, well, can we get anybody else to corroborate this? Well, we talked to all of his staffers. They didn't corroborate it. Well, we tried to open whatever archive or file or whatever. There's no report in there. Well, we talked to the person that ran his office that said she would have definitely remembered if a sexual harassment claim was filed. No report there. Several other mainstream media organizations were trying to corroborate the story and figure out. Nobody could find anything. Well, fuck. It seems like if it did happen, then it's the fucking agnostic's rape or Schrodinger's rapist, where maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but that wave function is never going to collapse and we're just never going to know. And there's no reason to believe it otherwise any more than there is to believe in Buddha or Allah or God or any other fucking spiritual thing, because you're never going to have evidence for it. It just doesn't exist. And the person making the claim just has no credibility. Her credibility is destroyed.
There was something I was going to say. I mean, to be fair, like, I guess, like,
and then real quick, Tara Reade never contacted Kamala Harris's campaign, apparently. Sabrina Singh, a senior advisor to Harris, told Axios that there was no record of any request that she made. So that might have been another lie that Reade said when she said that, because she lied to the Vox reporter about that. When she came out, she was like, nobody wanted to pick up my story. But that wasn't true, because when she was talking to the Vox reporter in 2019, she also told that Vox reporter that she was talking to several other reporters at the New York Times and the Washington Post. And those people were all researching it as well. So there were people in the media that were talking to her. She lied about that.
Can you send me that article as well so I can check it?
Here's the Vox story. This whole story is going to probably make you really mad, but here's the entire Vox thing where they talk about how difficult it was trying to report on the story, and when they talk about the difficulties of how inconsistent her story was, and about how other media outlets were trying to corroborate as well, and they just weren't able to do it because the stories kept shifting.
Okay. There was something I was going to say.
Go for it.
I do think that Tara Reade, like, has a history of lying, especially about, like, financial matters. I don't know if you read that article.
Something about her not paying rent or some dumb shit or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Again, to me, like, it's hard for me to say, like, oh, yeah, like, inconsistency equals whatever event doesn't happen. So I do think, like, from what I've read so far, at least, like, the situation is, like, kind of how you described it. Like, there's no way to prove that it did or didn't fucking happen because, like, of a lot of things. I think, like I said before, there's room for reasonable doubt. Do I know of evidence that can exist or that is possible for it to exist to say, like, clearly Biden did or didn't do it? No, I don't think that's possible. I do think, like, either way, like, it's kind of, I want to say, like, oh, like, it's a position of faith or whatever, because, like, such evidence or clear-cut evidence doesn't exist. I think that when I look at what happened before, for you, it's like, oh no, like, that doesn't have to be, like, sexual assault. And although I agree with, like, the incidents before, it doesn't necessarily, like, refer to sexual assault. Like, I have a very hard time seeing, like, what else it could refer to that it would, like, persist for so long that should, like, mention
you
again.
Can't think of any other type of complaint an employee would have working in an office with her history of credibility issues.
Called, like, fucking, like, Larry King, that, like, years later she fucking remembered it. Like, to me, that's, like, I don't know, like, I to me, that's, like, incredulous up to a certain extent that, like, this was such a fucking big office issue that your mom decided to, like, go all the way to, like, fucking call Larry King about it.
Maybe she felt like she just got fired for a bullshit reason. What if he was physically abusive? What if he punched her? Maybe he hit her. That could be something similar, right?
That could be something similar, but that's not, like, the claim that she's making.
I'm just saying that, like, saying that there was a problem in the office could be a million different things. To assume that, must have been rape, it was like, holy shit.
A problem in the office, like, to such an extent that, like, your divorced husband claims that it was, like, traumatic, and that your mom, like, fucking, like, calls, like, Larry King about it. I mean, if it's not rape, then it's still, like, something, like, really fucking serious.
Not
scary.
Something so serious that anybody else in the office could recount it. Not so serious that she didn't actually seem to file a complaint about it. Not so serious that she didn't go to the press with it until Biden passed Bernie Sanders in the primary. Like,
there's something I was gonna say. I mean, I have to like recheck the Times Up shit, the article, the fucking whole timeline thing, because from what like I knew, which for me contributed as a point of like truth to her, was the fact that she came out with this like way before like March, that she came out with this like way before like we
it
got
was
to the
never
situation
sexual
where we
assault
are.
before March.
There's something else I was gonna say. And then like the whole thing about like, oh yeah, she's like said like good things about Biden. She said like good things about like him before, or like she never like claimed that it was like sexual assault to this degree, or like if she never claimed it was sexual assault, like period. I mean, to me, that's something that like if I want to, and maybe like you think I'm being too charitable or whatever, like I think like okay, no, that like completely makes sense. Like I know people who have been in like that situation. That doesn't seem like unique to me. Of people,
Yeah, but
who have,
like if we want to run like
that
we
their
could run a
abuser was,
paranoid
like,
schizophrenic route on everything. So like here's a fact, okay? You can never truly know what exists in the mind of another person, okay? All of this has to be inductively reasoned, meaning that all we can do is we can look at some evidence and we can speak to a probability that something exists, right? So maybe I'm going to have maybe my conclusion is that my mother loves me, okay? Or rather, that's like my hypothesis, right? Well, how can I actually know that? Well, I can't. Well, okay, let's say that she buys things for me. Well, maybe she only buys things for me because she doesn't want to get in trouble with the state. She doesn't actually love me. Oh, well, my mom comes to my birthday parties. Maybe she doesn't want her friends to look down on her, so she comes to my birthday parties. Oh, like my mom calls me every day to check on me. Maybe she's got like a special deal with her cell phone company where if she uses her phone every day. Oh, well, what about when your mom sends you presents? Maybe my mom just does that because she wants to send presents to my others. Like, if you play that line back, you can literally inductively reason any fucking conclusion you want, right? You have to follow like a reliable pattern of evidence to inductively conclude something, and you can find an escape for literally every single possible thought. You know that, right? For any thought I think any person could ever have ever, I could theoretically inductively make another argument. Maybe they don't actually believe this thing. But to just say like, well, I could see how this could get twisted or that could get twisted, this is possible. Things do get twisted sometimes. It's possible. Maybe somebody pretends they love somebody, but in reality, they're just trying to get an inheritance or something like that. These things do happen. But at some point, there has to be an overwhelming body of evidence that points towards one answer that like you can be pretty confident is true. And if you find yourself constantly saying like, well, that could be that thing, that could be that thing, I could understand that thing, trauma could make this, and this, and this, and this. Now it's like, okay, well, at some point, like, holy shit, you're so far removed from reality. Like,
I mean, that's why I was like saying before, like I understand why people have like fucking reasonable doubt for it, and why I wouldn't like to put it like in a court of like law, like absolutely wouldn't pass. But when it comes to like cases like these, yeah, like it is going to be something that kind of does play like a fucking emotional aspect, or it's not going to be like completely like you're gonna not, as I said before, you're not gonna have like the fucking flaming gun either. I mean, like I guess like my biggest problem here, why I have such a hard time saying like, oh no, like I can't believe like Tara Reade or whatever, is because if I use like the same line of logic that was like used for Reade, or that's being used right now, then it comes to a conclusion like, fuck, I shouldn't believe like any of my fucking friends that have come to me to talk to me about like rape or their assault, because they don't have like a clear fucking paper file. They don't have a clear like anything filed.
if your friends have a consistent story for 20 years and then it seems like there might be something political to gain and they switch it on a dime and all of their stories to all of their other friends that they've said suddenly magically change, yeah, then you probably should be like, I don't know if I believe this friend or not. That'd probably be a good idea to do that. Given that you're very young, I don't think you have friends that are that old yet that have had 20 years of like sexual assault allegations or whatever. So I mean, like, you're not in that position yet, but like, yeah, I mean, it's okay to stop and be like, well, do I believe this or do I don't believe this, right? Like,
yeah, but I mean, like, what is it? I might, okay, so let's say I put myself like in her brother's position or whatever. So I've had friends that like have told me about this, or who have told me like to varying degrees about what happened to them, but they haven't told friend A. And friend A like hasn't like heard about any of this stuff for like fucking 20 years, or who heard like a different version of events, because my friend wasn't like comfortable enough telling friend A. That doesn't mean like it never fucking happened, or that friend A is like wrong for thinking like, oh shit, this did happen to them. Like, does that make sense?
I understand, but the problem is you're giving such a wishy-washy pass here that literally every story that every person tells all the time should be treated as true. And that's just not a good way to look at the world.
I mean, I agree in general, and that's why, like, that's, to me, like, it's hard, because it's like, if it was anything else but rape, I would be like, oh yeah, like, inconsistent stories, like, usually point to, like, falsehoods, and that's why I go back like to saying like, oh yeah, the only thing that like could, I guess, change this current view of my world when it comes to like rape is going to have to be like either some like really fucking clear contradiction, like saying that you're raped by
I wish that I could like run another alternate reality, but if she made, because I can't obviously trust your answer or anybody else's, but like if this exact same allegation came out against Bernie, I have a really hard time believing progressives would be like, yeah, Bernie probably raped her. I'm gonna believe Tara Reade.
It depends. If Tara Reade, like, how do you call it, did have like, if you basically had the same exact stuff, I think I would actually believe it, because I'd be like, and obviously you can't trust my fucking answer because like everybody's biased.
I would never believe it. No way. I would never believe that, because Bernie's like published some like creepy fucking like weird rape story when he was in college or whatever that was like creative writing or some shit. Yeah, but we've got all the excuses for that. Oh no, that was a creative writer product. That doesn't represent Bernie at all. Like blah blah blah. Well, you do know that sometimes people can use like their creative outlets as a way to show like inner desires. They could do that. Sometimes rapists or sometimes assaulters are actually really open with their behavior in the hopes that nobody will take it seriously. Like, I could say all of this too, and it could be true, right? But like, we don't say that for Bernie because it's Bernie.
Bernie's story was, if the whole article, how do you call it? He used like the rape analogy as a way to like symbolize like, what is it? Gender inequality and shit. Like, it was a weird article for sure. But anyways, like, the point that I was trying to make is that I don't understand like why Tara Reade would take the actions that she took for just like a fucking lie, just like for fame, like for fortune. Like, I don't think she's getting fucking any money.
Well, the problem, firstly, I'm sure the publicity, so this is another reason why I hate the comparison between her and Christine, and it's disgusting, okay? Christine was a well-respected professor that had a lot to lose going forward with these allegations. Not to be rude, but Tara Reade is not really anything. Her credibility is already shit. She really doesn't have much to lose aside from like all of the harassment and everything. It's not like she's like a tenured professor or is like a well-respected person in society. So she does have a lot to gain in terms of like publicity here, and it does seem to be like pretty politically convenient and how she's trying to like do these accusations. So like she does stand to gain a bit more than somebody like Christine Ford did, who was like a well-respected professor whose life has been completely destroyed by her sexual assault allegations against Kavanaugh.
You don't think like I don't know. I kind of disagree with the premise that like Tara Reade has nothing to lose. Like, fucking.
No. I literally gave the caveat that you're gonna get death threats and all of that. But in terms of like, she doesn't have like an ultra respectable profession. She definitely doesn't have a good reputation, and it's not like she's got a fuck ton of shit going on for her in life at the moment that's very positive for her. So she has way less to lose than somebody like Christine Ford.
But she's still, like, do you not still think that's, like, a lot to fucking lose still?
Do you not think that it's a lot less than what Christine Ford had to lose? A lot less?
It's a lot less, but still, like, a lot more than the average person.
Wait, what is she? No, what? She's like a below average person. What do you mean? What does she have to lose?
Okay, well, her fucking life? I don't know. Like,
wait, you said she has more to lose than the average person. What? No, she doesn't.
Yeah, no, like, the average person, if she has more to lose than if she never came out.
Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of publicity associated with things like this as well. Maybe, if she thought she could sink Biden's campaign, or, I mean, she's getting a fuck ton of press interviews and coverage now. I'm sure she's going to get, like, fucking book deals or some shit where she's going to write about it. Like,
okay. Yeah, I don't know where else to go from here. Because I understand, like, where you're coming from, and I understand what you say, and that's why, like, I don't fucking hold people who, like, don't believe her, like, as, like, rape apologist, whatever, because there is, like, definitely room for reasonable doubt, but I just think that as the situation stands right now, like, you don't fucking win. Like, there's like, no clear fucking answer, and, like, it just goes back to, like, okay, if I take if I, like, take the routes that I'm currently, like, taking, or the beliefs I'm currently taking with, like, all the people that have told me about, like, their fucking, like, rape experiences, I have, like, no more or, like, less reason to believe them than, like, fucking Reade, other than, like, I know them personally.
Okay. I mean, I think it's really sad if your friends are showing the same pattern of behavior that Reade is. I hope that you're not publicly accusing, like, other guys that you know of rape because a friend has, like, completely and totally changed stories, like, multiple times or whatever, and is doing it when they have something to gain from it, because that's really sad to all of the guys in your life, I guess, if that's what's happening. Like,
it's not like, something, like, suddenly they have, like, something to gain from it. I mean, like, it's this whole idea of, like, they literally even, like, it's just, like, so fucking far off, right? Like, this whole idea that they literally described to me, like, what rape literally means, right? Like, they forced themselves on me, like, I said no, like, I tried pushing them away, like, it still continued, but then, like, if you ask them, like, right after, like, like, were you raped, it's just, like, such, like, fucking huge denial. It's like,
yeah,
oh no,
of course, right after. We're talking about a story that was consistent for 20 years. 20 years! Like, Chlor, we get to, like, fucking put a time bomb or, like, a time, like, log when it comes to, like, how somebody processes. No, we can. Yeah, you kind of can. Like, if somebody lost a child and they were grieving over that for like 2 weeks, that's understandable. For 2 months, yeah, sure. For 2 years, you're still going to be sad about it. 10, 15 years later, it's still destroying you every day. You have a serious fucking problem and you need help. Like, yeah, of course, like there are reasonable timelines for where we expect people to grieve, or like reasonable timelines upon which you can like process trauma. Not everybody is the same way, but like for you to have a consistent story for 20 years and then your trauma all of a sudden is completely magically fucking cleared over the course of like 1 month.
I don't even know if her like trauma is like fucking cleared. Like it's very real that she's like still fucking suffering. But now that's out in the open, like she's just like forcing herself to like do interviews and shit. Like it's very like plausible that, you know, just because she can act like fine for a certain amount of time, that she's in like breaking down separately.
Okay. I mean, it seems weird that she's suffering so much, but she has the bravery to go out like on live TV and do these interviews and stuff over and over again. But maybe that's just part of her bravery, I guess.
Well, yeah, like you don't know how she is privately.
No, but I mean, we have like some character testimony that seems to point to it not being that good. Like, I mean, but yeah, okay.
Hope you have a good night, dude.
Yep, I love you. I love fighting with you. Okay, I'm sorry if you're emotional and I'm screaming at you a lot. Okay, but
I hate you and I never want to talk to you again.
Okay, be careful.
No, I love you. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Oh.
How are things?
Jesus fuck.
This is why you don't get emotionally attached to candidates. It helps to separate the candidate and the person from politics.
But what you just said betrays all of effective political everything, right? Getting emotionally attached to candidates is how a lot of candidates win, right? Obama, Bill Clinton, they want to be the guys that you like have a beer with. You know, Donald Trump wants to be the guy that tells it like it is. You know, Biden wants to be the kid who your grandkids play with his leg hair, I guess. I don't know, whatever. But like that personal connection is what a lot of politicians look for, right? Like they even come out and say explicitly like, "Oh, I'm just like you, LOL."
Well, of course, but if you're trying to get involved in this kind of thing, you should try to separate the candidate from the policy.
Oh,
the
yeah,
politics.
of course. I agree. But even online,
Like,
it seems like there's more popularity in being emotionally... Look at like people like Kyle Kalinske or Steven Crowder.
Of course.
Yeah, there's more popularity involved in being emotionally attached to candidates than not.
Yeah, well, it's a tragic combination of branding and politics. On one hand, the personal connection allows people to look past the flaws. On the other hand, if you can focus on the politics that are important, you can also look past the character flaws. It ends up being more of what allows your political goals to be most accomplished personally.
I don't even know if people care about that sometimes. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell.
Well, in terms of general politics, no. Most politics is personality based.
Have you
But
seen how
we
much
should-
like the lefties on Twitter? I don't think it's a general one, but like the lefties on Twitter are like turning on fucking even Bernie and like AOC and the
Well, of
Justice
course.
Dems. Holy shit.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this.
Mhm.
If you focus down to like the people who are building a brand on it, there's always money in going more radical. When
Sure.
Bernie was at the height of his movement, he looked kind of dumb if you were trying to run to the left of Bernie saying, Bernie's not communist enough. It's like, well, fuck you, nerd. This is where the momentum is.
Mhm.
But with Bernie gone, there is no pillar to root the left wing. So people are going all over the place. They're going far to the left. And that includes somehow criticizing Bernie for something. Again, it's people need a brand, and their brand is they're going to stake out some portion of territory to the left of Bernie.
Mhm.
Same way that when the Republican Party is bifurcated, people build a brand far to the right of it. Like, I imagine if you might recall the early days of the Trump administration, like slightly before Charlottesville, like that who's the neo-Nazi guy? Spencer. Spencer got kind of quiet. He wasn't as extreme. He was talking about how Trump was like their guy and stuff like that.
Mhm.
There was this like unity because Trump rooted the Republican brand, including the far right brand, around one idea and one person. When he kind of started to softly abandon them after Charlottesville, it caused a bifurcation, and now we see a lot of fascists and Republicans complain that Trump isn't going far enough.
Mm-hmm. All right, we should talk about Senate stuff sometimes. I'm gonna play a little bit of Call of Duty and then go to sleep. I'm fucking tired, but
Yeah, I'm up to do it tonight, or if you want, I just have work to bang out every day, all day now. So just message me on Discord when you want. When's a good time?
yeah, I'm generally like open at night to do it after like 6 or 7 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe tomorrow or Friday.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right.
Everyone, I posted some links in the Discord. Do your homework. We'll be chatting.
Okay. Have fun, buddy. Peace out.
Take care. Good night.
Pxie is crying, screaming, and screaming. I feel like such a bad guy. Maybe it's not fair for me to take this critical of an approach because these are like smaller figures, but like you're literally contributing to an overall like toxic political atmosphere. Like, I don't know. I feel like one of the scariest things for me in my life is if I feel like I'm holding a position that I can't be reasoned out of. I mean, my feeling is that it must mean that I didn't reason myself into it, right? If I'm like so hard dug into a position that nobody could fight my way out of it, you know, like I would be worried about that. But like when somebody like is just like hardcore, just like, you know what? I can't think of a single thing that would change my mind. I was like, damn, on some shit like accusing like the presumptive nominee, the Democratic Party, of rape. That's just something that you're just like a hard line. Like nothing can convince you otherwise. Like, damn, that's rough.
Nerd.
LSP had this argument with Pxie and said it was impossible to make this argument without sounding like an asshole rape denier. He stands corrected. Wait, what do you mean?
Destiny PPL have team sports mentality. It's why none of yous talk to our parents about pole.
Yeah, maybe.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Are you ready to play some COD?
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Frickle Frackler hackers.
okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Politics is very fucking frustrating to me. I really fucking hate it. I really fucking hate democracy. The entire concept of it is so rotten. People are so bad at like critically evaluating information and coming to good decisions. It's just not how we work as humans, like fundamentally.
Yeah, it seems more like the exception versus the norm.
Yeah, or it's like it's a learned behavior and it's not something that's like commonly taught. So like typically the way that people like make assumptions or the way that people inference stuff is in a very like irrational or not data driven way. And like these are the people that drive most conversations, both online and in the real world. So it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
And then
Also,
I have to
there were a
wonder,
lot of
like,
yelling.
when I'm the bad guy in a conversation where somebody else is saying repeatedly, like, oh, that person's a rapist, like, over and over again, and being like, oh, I don't really have any proof of it, but they're a rapist. And then, like, I feel like the bad guy at the end of that conversation, like, holy shit, what the fuck? Like, I have to wonder if I always have to revisit conversations like these in my head at night, because I have to wonder, like, am I the asshole here? Am I wrong? Or am I, like, fucking something up right now? And it's so hard for me to do it, because I argue against so many people that seem to be so, like, emotionally driven.
Mm-hmm. Well, like, there's like ways to go around it to like be like sensitive to the issue, like to not like be like overly mean, but at the same time, like, at a certain point, someone has to be the bad guy, right? Like, someone has to be the bearer of truth, even if it hurts people's feelings.
Hold on, I'm meme jacking Urk for a good tweet for my friend.
Mm-hmm.
So like here, like my problem is that like I am a huge fan of safe spaces. I think that there should be areas where people can have conversations where they can just fucking let it all out and not worry about being judged. I think that's important. I think it could be an important tool for recovery. I think it can be an important tool for people to cope with shitty real life situations. Like, sometimes it's just nice to be able to be like, dude, this sucks and this sucks and this sucks, without having somebody fucking judging you constantly over it. It's just nice to say that. Sometimes I just want to complain about how much AD carry sucks, even if I was extended a little bit too far and the jungle ganked me, even if I was a little bit mean to my support and they didn't fuck right. Sometimes I just want to complain about it. Maybe I'm not 100% right, but I just want to complain about something, right? I think there's value in that. What I don't think there's value in is treating people with gloves when they step into the public arena and they want to bring out big, heavy-hitting accusations and still expect to be treated like it's a safe space.
Did you reason
right?
yourself into Dan
Yeah,
being a
I understand what
diddler?
you're saying.
Was
Like,
it a terror
I can
or
totally
the
understand.
situation?
Nice dono, dude. You're very funny. Keep it up. I can totally understand like a woman that's been raped, being in like some type of like circle where they're chatting and saying shit like "fuck men," "I hate men," "it's bullshit," "every man is blah blah blah." I get that. You know what? And fucking 100%. If like that's part of your process of recovering, that's totally fine to do that. But if you want to go public with that and you want to come out on a public platform, dude, well, you can't. No, it doesn't work that way. I understand that you might have trauma, you might have issues, but as soon as you make it public, now you're opening yourself up and inviting criticism. Yeah.
And there's different levels of responsibility with it too, and even responsibility in calling it out. I don't think that, like, I think that you can like be truthful, not you, but like in general, like you can like tell people the truth and like correct their bad takes or their harmful takes in like a way that is like unnecessarily cruel, or like in a like normal way. I don't think that you're like unnecessarily cruel.
Maybe it feels like it sometimes, or at least the reactions make it seem like it, but
Sometimes in order to be effective, can't always be nice. Something that I struggle with.
I guess like the worry is that like there has to be like I just sometimes when people are too gentle, it makes it seem like something is okay that's not. That was my main criticism about Lumi. Okay, I love them to death. Okay, I love Lumi. I don't hate him at all. No ill will, and I think we're good right now or whatever. But like when they bring on people like Joshua onto their stream,
I'm getting fucked up.
and they like make them seem like a totally normal, okay person, and like everything they said about like not having any policy positions or not understanding their platform or whatever, that's like okay. It's like, well, no, I don't think that's okay. I don't think you should bring somebody on and make them seem something. Same thing with like Alex Jones. I don't think Joe Rogan bringing on Alex Jones and making him seem like a chill, normal dude. I don't think that's okay. Like,
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Like I just like you have to be careful not to be overly nice in like, because then it can seem like what they're doing or what they stand for is like less wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think in some cases it's important to humanize people. In other cases, like, not really. Like, it really depends on the argument. Or it depends on, like, the situation or whatever.
But especially for, like, if you're, like, debating in front of, like, so many people, there's, like, I remember, oh god, I don't want to bring back past things.
What, S-Fan?
Like no, not that. There was like when Jenna went on the Raw show once, and she was like defending, like she had like bad arguments that she was kind of like defending for sexual assault, even though she did not sexually assault that person. Just like wait, did you jump already?
Yeah, I pinged it on the map.
Oh heck. Like going easy when people are making like bad excuses or like bad arguments for something like sexual assault. It's like on one hand someone's being really like sensitive and someone's like in a very emotionally volatile state, and you want to be comfy about that and you don't want to trigger them more, but then at the same time there's like thousands of people watching, so you almost have like a duty to call it out and to not be super cozy and use kid gloves because of the potential harm that it could cause if you don't call it out. Yeah.
I want credit for Joshua, okay? I want to say that I ended his campaign run. Please, let me have this, guys.